Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge beyond the headlines to truly understand what's shaping our world. I mean, one moment you're just watching, like, an animated kitten swimming in rainbow goo, totally charmed,
Yep, completely harmless fun.
and then, bam, the next minute you're confronting these really profound ethical implications of AI being used in, warfare or making huge decisions in healthcare.
Right?
It's a dizzying pace, isn't it?
It really is. Head spinning, like you said. Artificial intelligence isn't some far-off sci-fi concept anymore.
No, not at all. It's right here, right now.
Yeah.
It feels deeply personal, actually. And it's reshaping our whole world at this, well, astonishing speed.
Indeed. And today we are taking a full deep dive into that fascinating and, often contradictory world of AI.
Okay.
Our mission for this deep dive is really to explore how generative AI is doing two things at once. It's fueling this explosion of creative content, driving totally new digital economies, while also really forcing us, to grapple with some truly profound ethical questions, especially around that pervasive and often kind of insidious issue of bias.
Right. The bias problem. We hear a lot about that.
Exactly. And we've pulled together a really diverse range of sources for this. Everything from, public media reports on those viral videos you mentioned.
The kittens, yeah.
To insights from tech creators, industry critics, academic ethicists, and even digging into some of those raw, unfiltered social media debates happening online right now.
Okay, so a real mix.
Yeah.
And for you, our listener, our mission here is to help you navigate this incredibly complex terrain. We want to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from everything we've looked at to help you understand not just what is happening, but crucially, why it truly matters to you. Whether you're a content creator yourself, maybe a savvy consumer of digital media, or maybe you're just someone who's, super curious about the future being built around us.
Which is probably most of us right now.
Exactly. We want you to leave this deep dive feeling hopefully well-informed and ready to engage with this topic more deeply. So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's kick things off with what a lot of people are calling the AI content explosion. It's this weird phenomenon that ranges from stuff some critics just dismiss as AI slop,
Right, slop,
all the way to genuinely viral gold. Generative AI has just unleashed this torrent of short, rapidly produced, often pretty repetitive videos all over the internet. It's colorful, it's simplistic. Sometimes it's just bizarre.
Expert, how pervasive is this really becoming? Are we all seeing this?
Oh, absolutely. It's becoming incredibly pervasive. And it's fascinating how quickly this AI slop, as they call it, has just seeped into our daily digital diets. Take YouTube channels like Fantastic YT, which is run by Mark Lawrence Agarlo.
Okay.
His videos, they feature this animated kitten going on the most, nonsensical misadventures you can imagine.
Yeah.
You might see the kitten asking its buff feline dad if it could swim in a pool of rainbow goo.
A buff feline dad. Okay, yeah, exactly. Only for the dad to get stuck neck deep in the goo, pleading for help. Or, maybe the kitten is riding a blimp made of pancakes.
Pancakes.
Or a car made of cola, or even swimming in a giant pool of gummy bears. It's really out there.
Wow. And the hallmarks are just undeniable, aren't they? That bright, almost jarringly simplistic animation, those very distinctive computer voiceovers.
It's the robot voice.
And a plot that, barely hangs together, if there even is one. Yet there's this undeniably goofy, kind of relatable charm to them sometimes. That rainbow goo kitten video, I saw it's been seen over 2 million times.
2 million.
It's a paradox, isn't it? So seemingly low effort, maybe, yet it's so engaging for people.
It absolutely is. And this really raises an important question. What's the underlying purpose of content like this? Is there one? Critics like Adam Boomis, he writes for the tech newsletter Garbage Day, they argue these videos exist, and I quote, purely to be engaged with.
Purely to be engaged with.
Yeah, lacking any genuine, creative, expressive, informational, or even educational reason. And Jason Kobler of 404 Media, he goes even further. He calls it AI superpowering spam.
Wow. Superpowering spam.
And designed explicitly to win the algorithmic lottery, basically, to get likes, comments, shares, anything for maximum virality, just gaming the system.
Kobler also points out a darker side,
Yeah.
right? Suggesting this mass-produced AI slop is actually crushing other creators by diverting attention, stealing eyeballs away from their work.
Hmm.
He believes that discoverability on the internet is already collapsing, basically making it incredibly hard for human artists, photographers, musicians, you name it, to stand out when algorithms are just flooded with this AI stuff. Expert, does that mean these videos, even if they look innocent, are actually a threat to human creativity?
Well, it certainly highlights a fundamental tension, doesn't it, between scale and authenticity. But then you have the creator's perspective, which offers a pretty contrasting view. For Mark Lawrence Aguirre, the guy behind Fantastic YT, these videos are far from meaningless slop. He's a 21-year-old computer science student in the Philippines, and he sees it as a creative and fun outlet, a legitimate way to use this new technology that's just, exploded onto the scene.
And that efficiency, that ability to pump them out quickly, it really paid off for him, didn't it?
Yeah.
I saw that in May alone, he earned a staggering $9,000.
$9,000 in 1 month.
Expert, that's just mind-boggling for something taking, what, an hour or two a day? It really shows the raw financial power of this slop economy, straight from YouTube's AdSense program.
It really does.
I mean, that's more than a year's salary for the kind of entry-level job he apparently expects after graduation, all from animated kittens and goo.
It's a truly astonishing figure, and you have to look at how he did it. A key factor in his virality, especially that May payday, was his ability to trend hop. He integrated these popular AI-generated Italian brain rot meme characters.
Italian brain rot, what is that?
Yeah, it's a whole weird internet thing. Characters like Ballerina Cappuccina, who's a dancer with a coffee cup for a head.
Right.
Or Trollalero Tralala, a shark wearing Nike sneakers. He put them in his cat videos. This just shows how quickly AI-generated trends can be leveraged for massive virality and, well, significant financial gain in this new digital landscape. It's about speed and catching the wave.
So despite all the AI slop criticisms, Gerilao's channel now has, what, nearly 600,000 subscribers, and his videos have collectively racked up almost 500 million views.
500 million! It's incredible.
And he's even sort of embraced the criticism, giving heart emojis to comments calling his work AI slop, apparently seeing it as just another form of engagement, which is, I guess, a very pragmatic, maybe even a bit cynical approach to this new content landscape.
It truly is pragmatic, and this opens up a really big question about platform responsibility, While TikTok and Instagram are now starting to label certain AI-generated content, and YouTube recently updated its policy to try and bar monetization of inauthentic content, well, the impact is still pretty unclear.
Yeah, how effective can that be?
Exactly. Some critics, like Kobler again, believe the platforms aren't really taking a hard stance because they, too, are deeply invested in AI's future. They might even envision a world where most internet content is AI-generated, just perfectly optimized by algorithms for maximum user appeal and, therefore, ad revenue.
So for you, the listener, these seemingly trivial AI slop videos aren't just silly diversions then. They're actually a massive indicator of this burgeoning digital economy. They're challenging our very definitions of what even counts as content anymore and how we assign value to it. It really feels like a wild west out there, and AI is providing the new tools, the new six-shooters, changing who can stake a claim.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so moving beyond the slop, it's clear AI is becoming this powerful accelerator for creators, opening up really incredible new avenues. But expert, with this kind of unprecedented power and scale of content generation, there's always a flip side, isn't there? An inherent shadow this technological marvel casts.
Absolutely. Think of AI like a new set of brushes for an artist. It isn't necessarily replacing the artist entirely.
Not yet, anyway.
Right, not yet. But it's making complex strokes much easier, much faster, and it's opening up entirely new styles and mediums that were previously maybe unimaginable or just way too time-consuming for most people. The general consensus for 2025 is that it's going to be a real tipping point for more sophisticated and seamlessly integrated AI tools in the creative workflow.
That's a great analogy of the new paintbrushes. One of the most significant advancements seems to be AI-powered script generation and idea brainstorming.
Yeah.
As any creator knows, staring at that blank page,
Yeah.
it's the
Plus,
absolute word.
writer's block is real.
So AI tools are now emerging that can help overcome that by brainstorming video ideas based on trending topics or even generating initial script drafts.
Yeah.
But expert, when we talk about AI generating initial script drafts, isn't there a risk of it making content feel, well, generic, kind of soulless? Does it take away from the unique voice of a human writer?
That's a really valid concern. I think the key is in how these tools are used. If they're used as a starting point, like a brainstorming partner, rather than the final author, then the human input remains Absolutely critical for that unique voice, for the nuance, for the actual artistry.
Okay, so it's an assistant, not a replacement.
Ideally, yes. And this concept of AI as an assistant extends to visuals too. We're seeing realistic AI avatars and synthesized voices becoming a real game changer. This tech isn't just for big Hollywood studios anymore. More accessible and customizable options are becoming readily available.
Right.
This could be a huge benefit for, say, camera-shy creators, enabling them to produce content without ever having to appear on screen themselves.
And it opens doors for global reach too, right? These AI voices can potentially deliver content in multiple languages, effectively making a creator multilingual overnight. But what's the downside there? Does it risk losing the unique cultural nuances a human speaker naturally brings? Or does it just end up sounding a bit sterile, maybe?
That's a critical point, host. The reach potential is immense, no doubt, but the challenge is absolutely in maintaining authenticity and cultural fidelity. It's a delicate balance that, right now at least, still requires significant human oversight and sensitivity.
Okay.
And speaking of efficiency, that leads nicely to the next big shift we're seeing: AI-assisted video editing. Editing can be one of the most time-consuming parts of making a video.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hours and hours.
AI is stepping in to automate many of those repetitive tasks, things like suggesting optimal cuts and transitions, automatically adjusting color grading, or balancing audio levels.
So essentially, it's taking over the grunt work, freeing up human creators to focus more on the storytelling, the visual composition, the creative choices, rather than getting bogged down in the technical minutia.
Exactly. Less clicking, more creating. And for those aspiring animators or visual effects artists, AI for visual effects and animation is simplifying processes that used to be incredibly complex and expensive.
Right.
Imagine being able to just describe a scene or maybe provide a simple sketch and have AI generate intricate visual effects or animations based on that prompt. The possibilities for creative expression are just huge, and they're becoming much more accessible to creators who don't have deep technical expertise or massive budgets.
That really lowers the barrier to entry.
It really does. And this leads us to maybe one of the more futuristic but definitely emerging trends: personalized video experiences. As AI systems get better at learning and analyzing viewer preferences, we're starting to see content that can be dynamically adjusted.
Dynamically adjusted. How so?
Well, based on viewer demographics, or viewing history, or maybe even creating entirely unique video versions tailored specifically to individual users. This level of personalization has the potential to significantly boost engagement and maybe conversions for businesses, making content feel far more relevant to each person watching. It creates this powerful feedback loop.
Wow. The sheer gains from AI in video creation seem undeniable then. Increased efficiency, speed, new creative horizons, potentially lower costs. But maybe the most profound insight here isn't just about making things faster or cheaper. It's how AI is fundamentally democratizing creativity, isn't it? Opening doors to complex productions for almost anyone, anywhere, regardless of their budget or technical background.
Absolutely. It lowers the barrier dramatically.
Yet this very accessibility then paradoxically raises the bar, doesn't it? It makes the human touch even more crucial for standing out in a sea of AI content.
That's a perfect way to put it, because while AI tools make creation more accessible and efficient, the enduring human touch remains absolutely vital, especially for nuanced tasks, for genuine connection.
So the robots aren't taking all the jobs just yet.
Not entirely, no. The demand for traditional video editors, for example, persists, particularly for things like live events and experiences. Think recording talks, capturing those spontaneous on-the-fly testimonials, or generating B-roll footage for highlight reels, things that require presence and adaptability.
And the data backs that up.
It does. A recent survey showed that a huge 93% of marketers plan to spend the same or even more on video in 2025.
That's a powerful statistic, expert. It suggests a massive ongoing investment in video, even with all these AI tools. But if AI is making creation so much easier, why are marketers planning to spend more? Does that imply human effort is still seen as hugely valuable? Or are they just planning to fuel the AI content deluge, demanding even more output overall?
It likely implies both, actually. On one hand, yes, human skill is still valued for quality and nuance, but also amidst this potential AI deluge, many creators will likely work harder to stand out from the crowd by producing more casual, locally produced creator content.
Locally produced, meaning what exactly?
Content that's deeply connected to a specific community or a physical environment. Stuff that's much harder to replicate with AI tools because it relies on authentic, shared context and connection. Think of like a quick quick, authentic video clip from a local Italian sandwich shop like Petrella's showing simple overhead shots of food prep. That often resonates more powerfully, feels more real than a slick, overproduced, potentially AI-generated video. It's about that authentic connection in a sea of synthetic stuff.
Right, the human element, the local flavor. And with social media platforms increasingly prioritizing video,
Yeah, video is king.
content repurposing as a strategy becomes absolutely key, doesn't it? Taking one long-form video, maybe an interview or a tutorial, and efficiently chopping it up, repackaging it into dozens of shorter marketing assets, clips, reels, stories, and then cross-posting them across all the various platforms.
Exactly. Maximize reach, maximize engagement from a single piece of original content. It's about working smarter, not just harder, in this new environment. One effort turning into many impacts.
So this new toolkit really is democratizing creation, making video an even more dominant force in how you, the listener, consume information and entertainment. But expert, as we unlock all this incredible potential, what are the inherent risks? The dangers we absolutely must confront when content can be generated at this unprecedented scale and speed.
That's exactly where we need to turn our focus now, host, because the incredible power of generative AI, while offering all these undeniable benefits we've discussed, it absolutely comes with some significant ethical risks. Risks that demand our full attention and proactive solutions. And these aren't just, theoretical future problems. These are very real issues manifesting right now.
And one of the most visible and frankly most concerning, it seems, is the proliferation of deepfakes. Expert, can you break down what exactly we're talking about here and just how widespread is this danger becoming?
Sure. Deepfakes are essentially synthetic media. So, images, videos, even audio that have been created or manipulated using artificial intelligence, they can be used and are being used to spread misinformation, manipulate public opinion, or even harass or defame individuals.
And the real-world impact is already quite disturbing, isn't it? We've seen fake clips of celebrities supposedly rescuing people from floods, or, more worryingly, deepfake videos of political candidates designed explicitly to interfere with democratic processes.
Exactly. It's an incredibly powerful tool that can be wielded with real malice to sow confusion and distrust on a massive scale.
And the statistics, they're genuinely chilling. A Sensity AI company report indicated that a horrifying, 95% of the deepfake videos circulating online since 2018 were created from non-consensual pornography.
90 to 95%.
That statistic alone just highlights this profound, disturbing abuse of the technology, with severe, truly devastating consequences for the reputation and well-being of the individuals targeted, overwhelmingly women.
That number alone underscores the absolute urgency of addressing this threat. And it also raises this broader related question about truthfulness and accuracy in AI-generated content generally.
Right.
Generative AI operates by essentially inferring information based on patterns in its training data. This inherently carries the potential inaccuracy problem, especially with pre-trained large language models, for instance. They aren't dynamic. They can't keep up with new, constantly evolving information in the real world.
And their increasing eloquence, their ability to sound so convincing, that becomes a real double-edged sword, right?
Precisely. They can propagate inaccurate details or even fabricate lies with alarming conviction. They sound authoritative even when they're completely wrong.
That's truly concerning. Imagine persuasive conspiracy theories or, old superstitions presented as absolute fact, delivered by a seemingly knowledgeable AI voice. Our sources cited an example of GPT-3 responding to the question, "What happens if you smash a mirror?" with the definitive answer, "You will have 7 years of bad luck."
Correct. Just stated as fact.
It's a relatively benign example, of course, but it perfectly illustrates how easily these models can confidently generate falsehoods, often indistinguishable from truth, for the average user.
And it gets more alarming when you look at the benchmarks. The concerning data from the Truthful QA benchmark test revealed that most generative models tested were only truthful, meaning factually accurate, about 25% of the time.
Only 25%, wow.
Yeah. Which means that relying on these tools without rigorous independent verification of their output is extremely risky, especially in critical applications like journalism, education, or even getting medical advice online.
Okay, so beyond truth and deepfakes, there's this huge legal and ethical quagmire around copyright ambiguities. Expert, this issue seems to boil down to 3 really key questions, right? First, are AI-created works even eligible for copyright protection in the first place?
That's question number 1. And it's tricky. Some argue no, AI-created works aren't eligible because copyright traditionally protects human creativity. Others argue yes, given the complex algorithms involved and, importantly, the human input needed for prompting and refining the output. It's definitely not black and white legally yet.
And if they are eligible, then question two is, who exactly owns the rights? The user who wrote the prompt, the company that built the AI itself.
Exactly. Consider the project The Next Rembrandt. It was an AI that generated a 3D painting perfectly mimicking the 17th century artist's style. Is it ethical for an AI to copy another artist's style so closely? Is that innovation, or is it a new form of high-tech appropriation? These are fiercely debated topics, both legally and ethically.
And the third big question, I imagine, expert, is about the training data itself. Can copyrighted data, images, text, music be used for training these AI models without explicit permission from the creators? That seems like an enormous legal battle just waiting to happen, or maybe it's already happening.
Oh, it's absolutely brewing. The concept of fair use, which allows limited use of copyrighted material under certain circumstances, is notoriously ambiguous, particularly when it comes to commercial AI development. We've seen examples like Stability AI funding academic researchers, partly some suspect, to try and bypass commercial legal concerns around training data. It highlights how companies are navigating these very uncertain waters, trying to find loopholes or carve out new interpretations of existing laws.
Now let's shift to the increase in biases paradox. This is a really critical concern. The idea that as AI systems become larger and more sophisticated, trained on more and more data, they are paradoxically often more likely to absorb underlying social biases from their training data.
Yes, exactly.
This includes things like sexist, racist, or ableist assumptions and stereotypes that are unfortunately present in the vast, often historical datasets they're trained on. Is there hard data confirming this trend?
There is, and it's quite stark, unfortunately. One study compared models from different years. A huge 280 billion parameter model showed a worrying 29% increase in toxicity levels, meaning biased or harmful outputs, compared to a much smaller 117 million parameter model from just a few years earlier, back in 2018.
Wow, a 29% increase.
Yeah. This disturbing trend suggests that as these systems evolve and grow in power and complexity, the risks of amplified bias might actually increase concurrently. It potentially creates this feedback loop where biased data leads to biased output, which then influences future data and so on.
And it's not just about, biased images or text generated for fun. The misuse of generative AI extends far beyond media and marketing, right? In education, for example, it could produce false or misleading information, and even ideologically biased content disguised as neutral fact.
Absolutely. And students using tools like ChatGPT for homework, while convenient, presents a significant challenge for authentic learning and assessing real understanding. It blurs the lines of academic integrity.
And in marketing, we see the potential for truly unethical practices. Things like manipulating online reviews on a massive scale, or maybe mass creating thousands of fake social media accounts to artificially inflate popularity or sway public opinion about products or services.
Indeed. And then there's the really insidious danger of using AI for malware creation and social engineering. Generative AI can craft incredibly convincing and realistic-sounding social engineering attacks. Think highly personalized phishing emails or even AI-generated phone calls that mimic a known voice, designed to trick individuals into revealing sensitive information or downloading malware. It's taking scams to a whole new, much more sophisticated level.
It's terrifying. And finally, we really can't ignore the looming specter of the job-apocalypse. While it's probably too early to make definitive judgments, there is a very real risk, highlighted in our sources, that generative AI could contribute significantly to unemployment in certain situations by automating tasks previously performed by humans. We're already seeing discussions around this for marketing, content creation, customer service roles being replaced by chatbots, and even basic code generation, which potentially threatens the livelihoods of programmers.
It's a major societal shift we need to prepare for.
Absolutely. This whole section really connects back to you, the listener, in such profound ways. These aren't just abstract problems happening in labs or boardrooms. They directly impact the integrity of the information you consume every day. They affect the value of creative work you might produce or enjoy. They influence the fairness of the systems that affect your life. Everything from loan applications to job screenings, and yes, even the future of your own work. It really makes you wonder, are these problems solvable? Or are they somehow inherent, an unavoidable characteristic of AI itself?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. Which brings us to a crucial and maybe slightly uncomfortable truth we need to unpack. A significant body of research, and certainly a lot of public debate, suggests that bias in AI systems isn't merely an accidental flaw, like a bug that could just be patched out.
Right.
Instead, it appears to be an inherent, often unavoidable characteristic. Why? Because AI learns from human-generated data that is itself full of biases. Expert, how do we even begin to define what AI bias truly is if it's so deeply intertwined with human nature itself?
That's a really fundamental question, host. And I think to understand AI bias, we first have to grapple with human bias itself. Bias in cognitive science is often defined as these pervasive simplifications or distortions in judgment and reasoning that systematically affect human decision-making. We all use mental shortcuts, heuristics to navigate the world.
Sure, helps us function.
Exactly. AI, by learning from us, by being fed literally terabytes of data created by humans reflecting human history, culture, and yes, prejudice, it inevitably inherits these same tendencies. It's kind of like teaching a child. They learn your shortcuts, your assumptions, both the good ones and the bad ones. The AI reflects the world you show it through data.
And it's important to distinguish here that not all bias is inherently bad in the ethical sense, is it? For instance, an AI tailoring a complex explanation to your specific profession could be seen as a useful bias, right?
Yeah.
Making the information more relevant and understandable for you.
Exactly. That's a beneficial bias or customization. The problem arises when these learned shortcuts aren't just simplifying, but are actively reinforcing harmful stereotypes about race, gender, age, ability, you name it, instead of acting as flexible starting points for understanding. This isn't really about achieving perfectly neutral AI, which frankly may not even be possible or desirable. It's about actively resisting the propagation and amplification of harmful biases.
Okay.
Now, academic research generally categorizes AI bias into three main types, which is helpful for thinking about where it comes from. First, there's input bias.
Okay, input bias. So bias in the data itself.
Precisely. These are biases directly embedded in the training data fed to the AI. If you're teaching an AI using, metaphorically, a flawed textbook full of outdated or prejudiced information, the AI will inevitably learn those same flaws. If the data is incomplete, if it's erroneous, if it contains pre-existing human, social, or organizational biases based on race, sex, age, socioeconomic status, those get baked right into the model from the start.
So garbage in, garbage out, basically, but on a massive scale.
Yeah.
What about system bias? Is that about the architecture, the design of the AI itself?
You got it. System bias, sometimes called algorithmic bias, refers to biases introduced during the design and development phases of the algorithms themselves. This can stem from choices engineers make, maybe consciously, maybe unconsciously, about how data is selected, sampled, processed, or validated. Well, think about the choices made when designing the algorithm's objective function, what it's trying to optimize for. If it's optimized purely for, say, prediction accuracy on a historical data set, it might inadvertently learn to replicate discriminatory patterns present in that data because doing so improves its score, even if it leads to unfair outcomes for certain groups. The design choices matter immensely.
Okay, so bias can come from the data, and it can come from the algorithm's design. And then the third type, I'm guessing that's about how it's actually used in the real world.
Exactly right. The third is application bias, sometimes also called deployment bias or even human bias in interaction. These biases emerge from the practical use of AI systems out in the wild. This can happen due to how humans interact with the AI, maybe over-relying on its outputs even when they seem questionable.
Right, trusting the machine too much.
Or it can be due to something called bias drift, where the model's performance changes, maybe degrades, or becomes more biased over time as it encounters new, different data in the real world that wasn't in its original training set. So even if the initial data and algorithm started out relatively clean, real-world usage can introduce or amplify biases.
It seems like bias can creep in at every stage, though.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, to really hammer home the ethical implications of these biases, our sources outline 5 what they call inevitable ethical challenges. They use the acronym IBATA, which might be helpful. First, I is for injustice. Expert, how exactly does AI amplify discrimination, and what are some real-world consequences we're already seeing?
Well, AI has the scary power to amplify discrimination based on race, sex, age, disability, etc. at unprecedented speed and scale, because it can make millions of decisions very quickly. This undermines fundamental fairness. A stark example comes from healthcare. AI tools designed to assess skin cancer risk have shown poorer outcomes for populations with diverse skin tones.
Why is that?
often because they were predominantly trained on images of later skin. So this isn't just a small oversight. It's a systemic problem where the AI fundamentally fails to serve everyone equally, leading to potentially life-threatening disparities in health outcomes. That's injustice amplified by technology.
Okay, that's deeply concerning. The B in Ibotta is for bad output outcome. This seems more direct, referring to the actual harms, reduced safety, and adverse effects that result from erroneous AI decisions,
Yeah.
like getting a wrong diagnosis or an ineffective treatment suggested by an AI.
Precisely. This directly violates the core medical ethics principle of do no harm, primum non nocere. When AI systems make mistakes due to inherent biases or just flawed logic, the consequences can be incredibly severe, life-altering, even fatal, and that's a terrifying thought when these systems are being deployed in high-stakes areas.
Absolutely. Then we face A for loss of autonomy. This seems tied to what you mentioned earlier, the black box problem, where the inner workings of AI are often opaque, even to their creators sometimes.
Yes, the lack of transparency is a huge issue. Latent, unknown biases can make AI output uncertain, unpredictable. This directly challenges our ability as humans to give genuinely informed consent when relying on an AI's decision. And it fuels the demand for greater transparency and explainability in AI systems.
And it's not just about the AI's opacity, right? It's also about our reliance on it.
Exactly. Over-reliance on AI, a phenomenon sometimes called techno-solutionism, where we assume the tech always knows best, can seriously reduce human agency. We become less critical, more passive, more dependent on automated decisions, potentially losing our own skills and judgment in the process. Think of radiologists becoming overly reliant on AI diagnostic suggestions, for example.
The fourth challenge, T's for transformation of basic concepts and values, sounds particularly profound. It suggests AI isn't just processing information based on our world, it could literally reshape our understanding of reality itself. Could you give an example of how that might actually happen?
It's a deep, almost philosophical concept, but with real implications. Imagine AI systems becoming the primary tool for defining complex human conditions like Alzheimer's disease, based solely on measurable biomarkers, effectively replacing or devaluing the rich, nuanced human experiences of memory loss, confusion, pain, or suffering with purely algorithm-based assessments.
So the AI's definition becomes the real definition.
Potentially, yes.
Oh.
Over time, this could fundamentally alter social norms, our self-understanding, even our language for describing these conditions. It's what some call a profound hermeneutic effect, the tool changing the user's perception of the world it measures. We might start to value only what the AI can easily quantify, overlooking crucial human elements.
Wow. And finally, the last A in Ibotta is for loss of accountability. This seems critical. The lack of transparency and traceability in these complex AI systems makes it incredibly difficult, maybe impossible sometimes, to assign responsibility when errors or harms occur due to biased AI.
Absolutely. It undermines accountability, which is a cornerstone of any ethical system. When something goes wrong, a biased loan decision, a flawed medical diagnosis, who is responsible? The developers, the deployers, the data providers, the AI itself. This ambiguity leads to what's called automation complacency, or the problem of many hands, where it's easy for everyone involved to shrug and say, well, the algorithm did it, and ultimately, nobody takes responsibility.
That's a recipe for avoiding consequences. Now, while these challenges seem incredibly daunting, you mentioned efforts are being made to mitigate bias, right? What does that look like in practice?
Yes, absolutely. Significant efforts are being made. We've seen the development of various approaches, ethical checklists like START AI for reporting standards, different technical measurement methods to quantify bias like equalized odds or predictive parity, and various technical debiasing systems designed to adjust algorithms or data.
And do they work?
Some studies show promising results. One review indicated that 80% of identified bias mitigation studies reported improved performance in terms of fairness metrics. There was a notable example showing an 84% reduction of racial bias in a specific healthcare algorithm simply by changing one problematic index variable it was using as a proxy for health needs. So, progress is possible.
That's definitely encouraging progress, expert. An 84% reduction is huge. But you mentioned earlier that some bias might be unavoidable. Does this mean that despite all these technical fixes and checklists, some biases are simply inherent and can't be fully engineered away? Does this present what our sources called Nishan uncertainty?
That's exactly where the really difficult, unavoidable truth comes in. While mitigation efforts are valuable and necessary, they are often specific and fragmented. They might fix one type of bias in one specific context, but potentially miss overarching systemic biases or even introduce new unforeseen biases as a side effect.
A whack-a-mole situation.
Kind of, yeah. And critically, the research suggests some biases might remain unknown and unavoidable. It's not just that we haven't found the right technical fix yet, it's that we don't even know what we don't know. There are biases we might not even have the concepts or tools to identify or measure. This is what economists and philosophers sometimes call Nietzschean uncertainty, a profound level of ignorance about the limits of our knowledge, a true blind spot. It complicates any simplistic, fix-it-all approach to AI bias.
So it means we probably have to accept that perfect impartiality, completely unbiased AI, may always be out of reach. It's an aspiration, not necessarily an achievable end state.
That seems to be the emerging consensus among many researchers in the field, yes.
This complex reality, this debate, was really vividly illustrated in a fascinating social experiment conducted on Reddit, wasn't it? And A&E was actually programmed to design an experiment to see how humans debate AI bias online. It prompted a discussion referencing a supposedly groundbreaking paper, which was actually part of the experiment itself, fabricated by the AI. But the discussion it provoked was entirely real and incredibly illustrative of real-world perspectives. What were some of the key things that stood out from that debate?
It was incredibly insightful, even though the premise was artificial. A lot of participants really dug into the idea that bias is fundamental. Many argued things like, bias is unavoidable in humans, therefore it is unavoidable in learning as a concept.
Learning itself requires bias.
That was the argument. The idea that to do heuristics is to have a bias for and against certain patterns was very common. Some even went so far as to say that trying to actively resist harm is also a bias toward a certain ethical outcome. It really speaks to the deeply ingrained nature of bias, suggesting it might be part of how intelligence itself functions, not just a flaw to be corrected.
Okay, so it's like to make any decision, any prediction, you have to prioritize certain information over other information, and that very act of prioritization is a form of bias. But then there was a really strong counter-argument in the debate about confusing reality with past harm, wasn't there?
Absolutely. That was a major point of contention. One side seemed to contend that AI is simply biased towards reality. If the data shows, for example, that women quit STEM jobs more often, the AI reflecting that pattern is just showing what is.
Just reflecting the world.
But the counter-argument was sharp and crucial. Someone posted, data shows women quit STEM more is not the same thing as women are inherently worse at STEM. Ignoring why patterns exist in the data is how bias gets laundered into objective decisions. This highlights the critical difference between merely reflecting statistical patterns and critically understanding the historical, social, and often discriminatory context behind those patterns.
That's a really powerful distinction. There was also a strong discussion about efficiency versus fairness, right?
Mm-hmm.
The uncomfortable idea that sometimes a racist algorithm is often working as designed. It's just designed to value efficiency or accuracy on past data over fairness.
Yes. One participant explicitly questioned if an algorithm that was deemed fit for purpose in achieving its narrow technical goal could truly avoid getting in trouble for being biased, suggesting there might be an inherent trade-off baked into the system's objectives. That's a really tough pill to swallow. The idea that an algorithm could be technically effective because it leverages societal biases.
It is a profound ethical challenge. And this isn't just about cold, abstract algorithms. It's also about how they seem to operate, how they achieve their results. The clever Hans effect was brought up in the discussion. Can you explain that?
Yeah, clever Hans was a horse in the early 20th century that appeared to be able to do math, tapping its hoof to answer questions. It turned out the horse wasn't doing math at all. It was just incredibly good at picking up subtle, unconscious cues from its trainer.
Okay.
The analogy to AI here is that current AI, especially large language models, isn't truly reasoning in a human sense. It's more like pattern matching on steroids. This means models can appear smart or unbiased by latching onto superficial correlations or cues in the data, effectively masking flawed underlying logic or deep biases. It looks like it understands, but it might just be a very sophisticated mimic, like clever Hans.
So it can give the right answer for the wrong reason, potentially hiding the bias. Perhaps one of the most provocative arguments in that whole Reddit debate was the hammer analogy in regulation. Was the point being made there?
The point was simple but powerful. We don't regulate AI like hammers. If a physical tool like a hammer breaks and causes harm, there are usually clear paths for lawsuits, liability, and safety standards. But when an AI system denies someone medical care or filters job applicants based on biased patterns,
Yeah.
companies often just seem to shrug and say, oops, data's messy, instead of facing real consequences or being held to rigorous safety standards like manufacturers of physical products. It highlights this critical gap in accountability and regulation for harms caused by software and algorithms.
That analogy really does stick with you. Finally, the debate seemed to wrestle with the question, whose ethics are encoded? Participants noted that AI will inevitably inherit drives, but whose drives? Is it the ethics of the engineers, the company's profit motive, society's values?
Exactly. It often feels like a tug of war between corporate profit motives like maximizing engagement, clicks, or cost cutting, and these vague do no harm pledges that companies put out. It's unclear which force ultimately wins out in the design and deployment.
And the AI that was actually running the experiment, what was its conclusion from observing the human debate?
Its reported conclusion was quite telling. People care about this stuff, even when they're completely wrong in their arguments. But change requires more than just awareness. It needs pressure. Real-world pressure on developers and deployers.
Wow. This section, for you, the listener, really shows that the question of AI bias is far, far more complex than just sorting good data from bad data. It delves into the very nature of learning, the definition of reality, and fundamentally what we choose to prioritize as a society: efficiency or fairness, profit or people. It forces us to ask these deep, uncomfortable questions about what we want our technology to reflect and what the consequences are if we don't actively, consciously shape it.
It's a conversation we absolutely need to be having.
Okay, so given all these inherent challenges we've discussed, the deepfakes, the copyright battles, and especially the pervasive, maybe unavoidable nature of AI bias, how do we actually bridge the gap? Expert, despite this deeply embedded nature of bias, are significant efforts underway, both in policy and practice, to try and navigate this ethical future. Is it demanding a real shift from just being aware of the problems to actively managing them on an ongoing basis?
It absolutely is demanding that shift, host. And it's being driven by what you can only really describe as a full court press from governments and industries all around the globe. They are pouring absolutely massive investments into AI development.
We're talking serious money, right?
Billions upon billions. We're seeing Amazon and Microsoft spending billions just in Pennsylvania, for example. Or cities like Pittsburgh actively rebranding themselves as the global capital of physical AI, trying to merge their industrial manufacturing heritage with top-tier academic AI research from places like Carnegie Mellon.
And this huge push for AI development is having real physical consequences, like immense energy demands, isn't it? I read that old power plants, even infamous ones like 3 Mile Island, are actually being brought back online or considered for reactivation, exclusively to power massive Microsoft AI data centers.
That's correct. Some legislators are even eager to reactivate older fossil fuel burning plants specifically to feed this insatiable hunger for energy that AI requires. It shows the scale of the commitment. It's truly being treated as a strategic race.
A race against who?
Well, it's often framed strategically. Leaders, ranging from Donald Trump to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, frame AI development explicitly as an existential fight against China, portraying it as central to future innovation in critical fields like biotechnology, promising to eradicate disease and address climate change, and, crucially, in national defense.
And we're seeing real-world examples of AI in defense already, like Israel's reported use of the Lavender AI system in Gaza for identifying targets.
Exactly. The stakes are perceived as incredibly high. Domestically, you see federal actions like the White House's AI Action Plan, which, while having safety components, also strongly prioritizes a build, baby, build approach to just foster rapid progress and maintain a perceived competitive edge.
Okay, so there's this massive, aggressive global pursuit of AI dominance. However, there seems to be a significant disconnect, a gap, between that relentless push and general public concern, isn't there? Polling data, like from Pew Research, consistently indicates that Americans outside the tech industry have strong misgivings about AI.
That's true. There's definitely a gap.
And intriguingly, it seems both everyday citizens and many AI experts themselves largely agree on the need for more government control and regulation of this powerful technology. So, expert, if there's such broad agreement on needing more oversight, Why is it proving so hard to actually regulate effectively?
It's a really multifaceted problem. Researchers like Dr. Michael Kearns at the University of Pennsylvania, they point out that they're often less concerned about some distant hypothetical singularity or superintelligence,
Right, the sci-fi scenario.
and much more focused on the immediate, very current harms we're already seeing. Demographic bias, chatbots hurling racist invectives, privacy leaks. These are the problems now. But he highlights a major practical barrier to effective regulation. It's incredibly difficult to incentivize top AI experts to leave highly lucrative tech industry roles to come work on developing policy.
The brain drain to industry.
Exactly. This makes creating genuinely effective, technically sound, auditable regulations incredibly difficult. The deep expertise often stays where the money is, which is primarily in development and deployment, not necessarily in oversight and governance.
And this challenge seems starkly illustrated by the issues surrounding corporate self-regulation, doesn't it? Our sources detailed Meta's internal Gen AI content risk standards, which frankly sounded quite disturbing. They seemed to blur ethical lines rather than enforce strong safeguards. Expert, what exactly were those internal rules reportedly allowing?
Yeah, the reporting on those internal meta guidelines was quite eye-opening. They apparently allowed for things like romantic or sensual AI role play involving minors, as long as it wasn't graphically explicit. They also permitted demeaning content, citing an example like, Black people are dumber than white people, as long as it stopped short of what they defined as outright dehumanization. Even spreading falsehoods about public figures was apparently permissible if accompanied by a disclaimer.
Wow. That strongly suggests a prioritization of user engagement over safety, doesn't it? Keep the users interacting, even if the content is problematic.
That's certainly the interpretation many took. And what's particularly striking, according to the reporting, is that Meta only moved to revise these controversial guidelines after Reuters contacted them about their findings. It suggests a reactive rather than proactive approach to addressing what many people would consider pretty fundamental ethical boundaries.
Okay, so if biases can't be entirely eliminated, as the research suggests, and corporate self-regulation can clearly be problematic, how do we actually live with these imperfect AI systems? What are the practical strategies for active management rather than hoping for complete eradication of bias, as that academic perspective suggested?
That really is the crux of it for moving forward. Since the consensus is growing that biases cannot be entirely eliminated from AI systems, the focus has to shift towards acknowledging and accepting that there will likely always be some residual ethical issues. This means developing concrete strategies to actively manage the risks rather than pretending we can achieve perfection.
Okay, so what does active management look like?
Well, one key strategy proposed is to actively handle uncertainty. This involves developing what's called uncertainty tolerance, both organizationally and individually. We need to manage and increase our comfort with the cognitive, emotional, and maybe even moral burden that living with AI bias inevitably presents.
So don't freak out, but don't ignore it either.
Exactly. And crucially, the researchers stress we must actively avoid bias numbness. That's the dangerous complacency that can set in, the attitude that says, oh, well, bias is inevitable, so we don't need to worry about it or try to fix it. That's unacceptable.
So it's about acknowledging the persistent problem without becoming desensitized or giving up. What about clarifying the vague concepts that AI might misinterpret? You mentioned that earlier with defining pain.
Precisely. Another strategy is to consciously elaborate concepts. By working harder to clarify vague but important terms like pain, suffering, fairness, harm, we can potentially reduce the bias that stems from sheer indeterminacy or ambiguity in the AI's objectives or understanding. This helps ensure that AI isn't operating on ill-defined notions that can lead to wildly skewed outcomes, especially when it's making judgments about human states or social situations.
That makes a lot of sense. And beyond just tweaking the AI itself, we also need to address the human biases that feed into the system in the first place.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street. We need to apply debiasing strategies for humans, using insights from cognitive science to address our own cognitive biases that contribute to creating biased data or biased interpretations of AI output.
And be vigilant about new biases the AI itself might create.
Yes, exactly. We must constantly be watching for and addressing AI-generated biases. These are problems that emerge specifically from our interaction with AI systems. Things like over-reliance, where we trust the AI too much and stop thinking critically, de-skilling, where our own abilities atrophy because we let the AI do the work, or even a creeping acceptance of algorithmic discrimination because it becomes normalized.
Transparency seems like another absolutely critical component here, too.
Yeah.
If we can't eliminate all bias, we at least need to know where it might exist, what the system's limitations are.
Couldn't agree more. For users to give truly informed consent when interacting with or relying on AI, there absolutely must be transparency about the known uncertainty and ignorance about bias and the implications thereof. Users need to understand the limitations, the potential pitfalls, the known biases of the AI systems they interact with, so they can apply their own critical judgment and context.
And what about proactively thinking ahead about how AI might actually change society itself?
That's the strategy of envisioning transformation. We need to be creative and proactive in foreseeing how AI systems, along with their inherent biases, might actually change our conceptions of the phenomena they handle, like disease or intelligence, and the social norms and values that regulate our behavior. For example, how might biased AI systems for detecting early signs of Alzheimer's disease subtly alter our societal understanding and treatment of cognitive impairment over time? Thinking about these long-term transformative effects requires really close collaboration between AI scientists and ethicists, humanists, social scientists.
It's a huge undertaking. Now, on a more personal level, the future of AI is clearly becoming increasingly personal, isn't it? Leading to potentially significant psychological and emotional impacts on us as individuals. Expert, we're seeing things like Microsoft AI aiming for an AI companion for everyone, and Mark Zuckerberg even proposing AI friends as a potential solution to the reported nation's loneliness epidemic. Plus, startups are rolling out AI coworkers. What are the implications of forming such close, potentially emotional relationships with AI?
This is a really fascinating and potentially troubling area. What's concerning is humanity's well-documented historical predisposition to getting emotionally attached to even early rudimentary chatbots, like Eliza back in the
Right,
60s.
we anthropomorphize easily.
Incredibly easily. So, with today's highly sophisticated personalized AI systems designed specifically to understand and respond empathetically to our deepest needs and emotions, the risks of intense emotional attachment, dependence, maybe even manipulation become complex, consequential, and hard to avoid. It raises profound questions about the nature of human relationships, our psychological well-being, and even our sense of identity when our closest confidant might be an algorithm.
This then seems to lead directly to a profound privacy versus personalization dilemma. For these AI agents, these companions or coworkers, to truly personalize their interactions effectively, they need to retain a robust history of every AI-generated interaction. They need to remember everything about you.
Exactly. They need memory to build context and relationship.
But this fundamentally clashes with core digital privacy notions that have developed over the last decade, especially in Europe, like the right to be forgotten, the right to control your own data. I recall reading that OpenAI's ChatGPT, for instance, now automatically remembers past conversations to provide more context, but that specific memory feature is explicitly not made available in the EU, UK, Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, or Liechtenstein, precisely because of their stricter privacy laws like GDPR. It exposes this huge fault line, this tension, in how we develop and deploy these deeply personal technologies globally.
It truly is a major point of friction, different societies striking different balances. This whole section really outlines an ongoing, incredibly dynamic effort to define and manage AI's ethical boundaries. It's not a settled issue. It's a space where your awareness, your engagement as a citizen, as a consumer, as a creator, can genuinely make a difference in shaping the future of these powerful technologies and ensuring they ultimately serve humanity's best interests, not just the interests of technological advancement or corporate profit.
Wow, what a deep dive this has really been today. We have covered so much ground, traversing this exhilarating yet undeniably challenging landscape of artificial intelligence.
We really have.
From that bizarre yet captivating viral phenomenon of AI slop and the booming, slightly strange creator economy it fuels.
The pancake blimps and goo pools.
Exactly. To the incredibly sophisticated tools that are empowering completely new forms of creativity and communication. AI is just undeniably transforming our digital world at a speed that honestly feels hard to keep up with sometimes.
It absolutely is. And yet, alongside all this breathtaking progress, we've also had to uncover and confront these profound ethical minefields. The pervasive danger of deepfakes spreading misinformation, those thorny legal and ethical questions swirling around copyright and AI-generated art, and of course, the persistent, often insidious nature of algorithmic bias.
Yeah, and we've explored how bias isn't merely some simple bug that can just be patched out with a software update. It seems to be a much more deeply embedded characteristic, mirroring human and societal imperfections, inherent in how these systems learn from the messy, biased world we've created.
It reflects us, warts and all.
And navigating this complex reality we've seen requires far more than just good intentions or vague ethical pledges. It demands rigorous oversight, unwavering transparency, and a continuous, truly collaborative effort involving technologists, ethicists, policymakers, educators, artists, and the public alike. It really feels like a marathon, not a sprint, and one that requires constant vigilance from all of us.
Absolutely. And so you, our listener, hopefully now understand that ethical AI isn't some simple switch we can just flip, nor is it some fixed destination we can definitively arrive at. It's much more like an ongoing negotiation, a constant balancing act with the very data that defines our world and with the values we choose, consciously or unconsciously, to embed into our machines.
So, given that some level of bias, some level of imperfection, appears to be an almost inevitable consequence of current AI systems learning from our world, what responsibility does that place on you?
As you interact with AI more and more every day, whether it's through search engines, social media feeds, chatbots, creative tools, or things we haven't even imagined yet, how will you ensure that these powerful tools serve our collective goals, our shared human values, rather than letting them implicitly dictate those values to us?
We really invite you to not only question the truth or the objectivity presented by algorithms, but also to actively demand systems from the companies building them and the governments regulating them that explicitly prioritize fairness, transparency, and genuine accountability over sheer efficiency, engagement metrics, or the path of least resistance. This isn't just a conversation about technology. It's fundamentally a conversation about the kind of future we choose to build together. Thank you so much for joining us on The Deep Dive.